Good afternoon. Hello, hi, I'm Hayley Wright and I'm part of the Future Leaders Steering Group. So today, obviously, we will be looking at health and safety in the community and the benefits of volunteering. But just a quick note on our next IOSH Future Leaders webinar, which will be on the 16th of December, called Finding Your Perfect OSH Role, the Skill and Experience. So registration opens soon, so hopefully you can make that. So today I am joined by a great panel. I have Jonathan Dempsey, owner and founding director of Red Laces, Rachel Butler, the group Health, Safety and Sustainability Quality Manager at DeTrafford, and Simon Bliss, founder for Safety for Good. So let's start with the experience then of our panels. What's the experience of health and safety in the community, and how has it helped you professionally? Jonathan, should we start with you?
Oh yeah, thank you for the invitation of joining this afternoon. So yeah, I think volunteering at all different levels really is something I've done throughout my career. So whether or not it was something with the Children's University a couple of years ago, helping out with some project management, whether or not it was running a half marathon for a charity for the NSPCC, whether it's donating time and mentoring through Safety for Good, a whole raft of different ways really all the way through my career as extracurricular activity to network and do good and help make the world a better place.
Fantastic. And what about yourself, Rachel? What's your experience and sort of how has it helped you in your sort of professional development?
Yeah, so it's always been like kind of seemed for me like volunteering can be, you know, like giving back through mentoring. So that's one way of doing it. So from health and safety professionals throughout, have always been available to me to help me throughout my career. Now what's kind of come more to light is the online version and groups through that, which has been hugely beneficial for me in my career, because I felt almost as though I was kind of niche to one sector in construction. So it's been great to see other people volunteering to come forward with different elements and aspects of their own experiences from all the way through from manufacturing to construction.
Fantastic. And Simon, what's your experience?
Well, as some of you know, as well as I'm managing director of Principal People, the recruiter for the safety space, and I've always been impressed by the amount of work that OSH professionals do and to support the communities that they serve professionally. But in discussions with recruiters over the last with candidates and clients in OSH professionals over the last 10 years, it occurred to me, I was surprised at how much those individuals gave back to their own communities through volunteering. And that was the idea that gave me the idea for Safety for Good, to coordinate some of that giving through one movement, and actually access some of those OSH professionals to good causes, small charities that were desperately in need of giving, and everyone's benefited from that. There's a great degree of satisfaction in giving to a needy community, and OSH professionals, more than anyone, I think, from any of the sectors that I've been working in over the years, are a community of givers. So I've been inspired by that. You guys are impressive.
Fantastic to hear. So we talk about community, and I think that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So Jonathan, what do you think community actually means, especially now in sort of this digital age, 2020? What would you say it actually means?
I think you can take it at the most sort of commonly understood term as where do you live, the area where you live, and that can almost be being neighbourly, putting the bins away, putting the wheelie bins out for your neighbours, helping to clear the paths of snow and ice in the winter and that kind of thing. So I think feeling of that local community spirit, helping, looking after, networking, taking care of, I think there's that'll always be the case, and I think we see a lot more of that through COVID. there's a community of people with interests. So again, the global community of health and safety professionals. And I think, picking up on what Rachel said as well, the digitisation and the move to digital this year in particular, I think that sense of community and to be able to create community is something that we are all much more able to do. If we take, for instance, the Women in Business YouTube campaign that I've been running through Red Laces recently, which thankfully you took part of as well. What I've seen in that is actually a sense of community being created around that campaign or that activity. So with nearly 40 ladies across the world from different sectors, different professions, different cultures, actually seeing them support each other and be inspired by one another, actually from nothing, from an idea, I think there's a lot more opportunity for us to do that. And similarly to what Rachel's already said as well, is I think health and safety is quite often, certainly in organisations, been quite siloed and almost kept to the margins. And I think one of the things that we can do through creating that sense of digital community is network in other countries and other sectors and other cultures and take that learning into the organisation. I think being part of different communities and being curious about things outside of the typical health and safety rules, regulations and laws, which I think then you come back to things like the IOSH competency framework, those looking at communication skills, but also I think that curiosity. So what do marketing professionals look at? How has marketing looked at COVID? How have Gen Z, so 18 to 24-year-olds looking for purpose and value-driven brands, looking at sustainability, looking at mental health and those kind of things? How does that affect us, and how as health and safety professionals can we start to tap into some of that?
Absolutely. And you sort of touched on there about COVID-19 perhaps changing what we understand by community. Do you think that's changed, the importance of health and safety in the community and volunteering as well, Jonathan?
I think it helps us to have the freedom, the permission to look at things differently. I think that's, if anything, it should encourage more people to not think in straight lines, not to necessarily follow A, B, C, D. I think thinking more laterally and much more creatively. I mean, businesses have had to pivot overnight. So you've had let's say hospitality have had to think, how can I provide a takeaway service when I've never done that before? We've got businesses that have had to go from manufacturing one type of product and turning around to something different. So business had to pivot very quickly. And I think as health and safety professionals, we can now take this as a line in the sand to say, actually, if we were to think much more differently, much more holistically, much more creatively, much more strategically, how would that help us in our roles? How would that help us to see the challenges that other people have had and other functions have had and how they've overcome that? And how can we position health and safety in a different way? And whilst health and safety has come to the forefront, it's been in the news as a term, I don't think people understand health and safety anymore. I think it's just a term that's been bandied around more. But if we think about risk, if we take if we think about COVID in context of risk and how decisions have been taken and what informs that, with that creativity, I think that's where we can start to act differently.
Brilliant. And what about yourself, Rich? Do you think COVID-19 has sort of changed the rhetoric around community and volunteering within health and safety?
Yes, certainly. So we create a report monthly that actually totals our community hours. So anything from planting or, litter picking, that type of thing. And I was probably quite harsh on myself and the teams because our community hours had come down so much since obviously March through lockdown and stuff like that. But what I actually hadn't considered, that's the physical side of it. What we've been doing as a profession, I'm sure other people will agree, but we've used our kind of softer skills. So anybody with kind of the mental health training or anybody who's basically just got an ear to listen has actually been offering out their own support and stuff, which is, it is one form of volunteering. So not only that, but I'm sure that others alike have also provided advice from the COVID point of view to those small businesses and other businesses that Jonathan talked about. Although, yes, it's not physically giving somebody something, but it is giving you a time, which is also is also volunteering in the community for me. That's my thoughts.
Excellent. And I guess from your point, Simon, especially around safety for good, have you noticed much of a change?
If we're talking about COVID, I think actually COVID-19 has raised the profile of the OSH professional. Safety professionals are used to dealing with incidents and challenges and stress, and they don't tend to panic. And I've seen a lot of evidence of very senior safety professionals and managers who have been called upon, and their profile within their organisations has been raised tremendously because they've got involved with business continuity planning, transferring, thousands of workers from office to work from home within a week, very effectively, very constructively and productively. So I think it's raised the profile of safety professionals, COVID. I think they've been incredibly busy. Safety's been a part of their role in the last 6 months, as well as rather than all of the role, because they've been dragged into other things, but also they've been invited to executive level discussions, which sometimes they're excluded from in the past. And many of some have been, rather sadly, as you know, with some of the markets in aviation, events, travel have been furloughed, and we've been inundated with offers to support local communities that need the help with whether that be safety advice or simply, delivering food parcels and helping out underprivileged families in the local community. So I've been really impressed by what's the response to COVID, whether it be professionally or voluntarily from the community, the safety community.
Definitely. I certainly think it has sort of changed the shape of our profession and possibly the future of our profession and where we're going, which is obviously a really important thing as part of the future leaders. We want to be the influence of the future, and positively as well. So what do you think the benefits are of sort of health and safety in the community to our future OSH leaders who perhaps may be thinking of getting involved? Jonathan?
I think part of the benefits are the intangibles. I think it's that human connection. Certainly within an organisation, it's very easy to become very busy and largely to become very busy and to kind of almost lose sight of the purpose of what we're trying to achieve. I think where you can get involved in either at the grassroots level or in any other sense digitally a community of making the world a better place, it brings back that sense of purpose. What is it I'm trying to achieve? And you're contributing to the better good. I think it's very much about a social element as well. So it's that social connection, making new connections, making new networks, providing some light when actually people might be having a dark day. And I think that even down to things like mental health, we might be struggling ourselves, but being able to get out, if it's getting out and doing some exercise, if it's helping a local tree conservation, charity, whatever it might be, I think it's that getting out to nature where we can, supporting our own mental health and others, that sense of purpose and that added value. I think they're all things that will help because we are a complete person wherever we are, what we do. We're not just a health and safety professional when we go to work and when we come home. And so I think it's recognizing that we would generally wear lots of hats and being authentic as well. I think something else to mention is that a lot of people who will be listening to this will be not just early career health and safety professionals, but very well into and established their career, may well be experts in their field. And so actually getting involved in community and volunteering can give you a sense of learning some new skills or new activities or developing new interests and hobbies and meeting new people. So I think that part of making the world a better place is always that having that growth mindset and wanting to learn new things. And that's not always in an academic or professional sense. Sometimes it's a physical skills and hobbies with new people.
Absolutely. I think as well with the Future Leaders Group, we talk a lot, not just about the technical skills you need now, but the power skills, the soft skills, the leadership. And I think volunteering can be a great way of doing that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be directly health and safety related. There's so many different opportunities out there where you can sort of develop those skills. What about yourself, Rachel? In your experience, what do you feel the benefits are from sort of health and safety in the community and sort of some of the volunteering aspects?
I think Simon hit the nail on the head earlier when he said that we are a group of givers. So you'll always find that health and safety professionals do actually really like to help people. So it gives you such a great sense of satisfaction when you know that you have actually been able to make a difference or encourage somebody else to engage and make that difference. It's hugely satisfying part of the role.
Absolutely. I think I can sort of vouch for that, having two mentors, Jonathan being one of them. I'm really impressed as a profession that people are so willing to give you their time. You don't, and I think me and Jonathan spoke about this before, you don't necessarily have to agree. I think it's quite healthy within health and safety to have different opinions. And I think sort of that mentoring side can be a great way of developing that, especially when you're quite early on in your career.
Completely. It's so diverse as well now. There's so many more different levels of health and safety person coming into that. So you do get a huge overview of lots of different examples and ways that people deal with different things. And you can just guarantee that someone somewhere is wanting to share their own experiences of things. So it's actually shaping the future of HSSQ into different ways that it's probably never seen before.
Absolutely. Simon, what do you feel the benefits are?
I think they're huge. That if you get involved in community support programs, and we talked about that, whether that's with the community that you serve professionally or the communities outside that you might volunteer for, there's a great sense of well-being and fulfillment in getting involved and making a difference with regard to that. And I think we've all referred to mentoring as a good giving process, but actually, and Jonathan would probably back me up on this, you get as much out of, if you're a mentor, you get as much out of mentoring as a mentee sometimes, because it allows you to, coaching someone who doesn't work for you is very, very different to managing someone who works for you, and it does demand different skills, and it stretches you as an individual and prepares you for your next step. You know, as safety professionals go up the ladder in terms of seniority, the less they need. Some of the technical skills that they've been spent years honing, what they need is leadership skills, and that's a ladder that is one step at a time, and you really need to stretch yourself, and you can do that by working in other communities, because that takes you outside your comfort zone, and it's really selfishly beneficial for individuals to do that, as well as the people that benefit at the other end.
Absolutely. So do you think the occupational health and safety profession does enough to encourage and engage with communities with health and safety? Perhaps one for you, Rachel, because I know your sort of background, you've dealt in sort of construction and property, and I imagine that must have been quite a big part of your role to date.
Yeah, completely. And I think dependent on where people are with their careers and workload and stuff like that, a lot of health and safety people find time to, say, for example, carry out student visits across construction sites, or be it help with training and stuff like that. So I think it does as much as it can that way. And I know we're probably all connected to like colleges, universities and that type of thing. There's one thing that I would like to push, and that is not just for the student and the university people, because they are quite quite connected, but those that aren't fortunate enough to be through a construction or health and safety course through a university. So by connecting with people through the LinkedIn or whatever platform it might be, because those people tend to need more help and advice in my experience. And even if it's just offering a kind of a coffee and a tour around a site, I know that's obviously not as easy in this day and age, but even if it's like a virtual giving or something like that, that's where we could probably do better. But yes, engagement wise, I think that you'll find that people are willing and are already doing quite a lot from that side of it. I know that there are some groups that I've worked with previously, so like Working Well Together, HSE, etc. They also offer sort of free training, again I'll mention, on safety courses. So it's also helping, you know, like the man with the van who's looking to start working on like bigger building sites and stuff, but just hasn't quite got the confidence and know where to start with health and safety. So there's the CITB, HSE, and of course health and safety people like us that are willing to help as well. You just got to get engaged and connected.
Absolutely. So I know the IOSH competency framework mentions community impact and sort of, you know, working directly with the local community where they're affected. So, Jonathan, do you think enough's being done within the profession to sort of engage our communities?
I'm not sure how much necessarily it should be driven or needs to be driven by an organisation. I think there's a danger to some extent that, you know, an organisation like IOSH, for instance, has to spread itself too thin by trying to cover off so many things and so many initiatives. So I think largely we're pretty much all in agreement that naturally people working or aspiring to health and safety roles want to naturally give anyway, want to get involved, and maybe just hadn't necessarily seen the links and the intangible benefits of that in their organisational roles, which I think is something we've highlighted today. I'm not sure necessarily that IOSH necessarily need to do more about volunteering or promotion it. I think where IOSH perhaps under the similar organisations could be perhaps more influential is in conversations with industry and with businesses to look at things like corporate social responsibility and making those more of a reality. So actually getting in with for instance, like the Institute of Directors, the Chartered Management Institute, and having those conversations around how can organisations do more in the community, which also has a I suppose indirect benefit then towards health and safety. And then maybe look at organisations where IOSH or health and safety professionals or Safety for Good can support some of those businesses. So the man in the van that Rachel was just kind of saying there may well be small trade associations that actually larger corporates could support indirectly. And with IOSH, there might be something in there that as an initiative, a bit like a Safety for Good, where we could come together in a more of an organised way. So I think it's thinking creatively around how IOSH can influence other organisations and influence industry, as opposed to having to kind of say, we now think we should have a volunteering initiative. And I think there's a danger that by trying to do too much, you spread yourself too thin.
Absolutely. And you said earlier about sort of future leaders or even the younger generation being driven by purpose. Do you think the future leaders are going to play more of a role of driving this focus on community and doing more?
Absolutely, that's the way the world is going. You know, I do a lot of studying, kind of research and looking into kind of Gen Z content on social media and elsewhere, and the kind of the 18 to 24-year-olds and then younger are very purpose driven and values driven. So sustainability, mental health awareness, having being associated with brands that are have some values and live by those values and demonstrate how those live those values and promote that. That's the way the world is going, and so it's natural that health and safety will be made up of people coming with that mindset, but also that's an area where IOSH and similar need to be thinking about how to market to new professionals, because that's what's going to be important. And of course, it should be an easy sell. It should be an easy sell. There shouldn't be a difficult. But I think recognizing that, whatever level you are in your career, being aware of that, I think that comes back to that curiosity as well. So if Simon says we're all keen to give, that's great. I think alongside that, we also need to be keen to learn and keep learning. And that's not just learning the technical skills or learning the policies and procedures in our organisation. It's looking at what's going on in the world. And COVID has been the headline this year, but headline's not the thing to look at. It's how is that changing the world? How is that making the world go more digital? How is that making business having to be more agile? That's what I would look towards.
And Simon, you're obviously the founder and the trustee of Safety for Good. Could you sort of talk us through a bit more about that and its initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, we set that up to celebrate the great work that you guys do, because we felt that HSSQ professionals didn't get the press you really deserved. We've seen some of the tabloid newspapers from the noughties and the derogatory remarks and headlines that some of those red tops would give you. And we just, being a service provider to the industry outside looking in, we just didn't think it was fair. And some of you may know I was due to retire this year, but I bought another business and I'm doing other things. But I still will remain a trustee and for Safety for Good as ongoing. But one of the things we wanted to do was celebrate, have an entity like Safety for Good that celebrated the great work that you do and bang the drum for you, because we didn't think you did it enough. And I think we have been able to raise the positive profile of safety professionals. And I think through some of the programs that we're running with the Small Charities Commission and some philanthropic groups that support small charities, we've been able to match some great safety professionals who want to give and find them a match for a local charity, a good cause, and create some fantastic outcomes from those connections and celebrate those. And that's encouraged more people to get involved. You know, we've got 100 mentors and mentees matched now, and we've probably got over 100 little projects running between good causes, small charities, with local professionals giving their time and their guidance to professional guidance to those causes, whether it be a school that wants to do an extension or to run an event that actually we had a great example of an event. A school in Dorset had been building an event each year, a music event where parents and families would come along and the kids would do a concert. Because it was so successful, it grew and grew, and they were getting 200 or 300 people come to the outdoor event in the summer. And the headmistress spoke to the police, and the police were a bit concerned because it was getting bigger and bigger. And they said, "You can't do it this year. You've got too many people. It's a health and safety risk." Fortunately, one of the dads was a health and safety professional, and he spoke to the police, and he said, "They're using this as a barrier, and they're using us as an excuse, you know, that it's a risk." And he enabled rather than blocked, and the event went forward. They raised loads of money for a local hospice, and it was a great example of what safety professionals can do to facilitate, you know, something really good happening in the community. And that's inspired others. So and the good thing about that is IOSH have always supported us, so we can bang the drum for you. You don't, as Jonathan said, don't try and do too much, but you guys have helped us promote Safety for Good with your membership. And I'm doing an interview with your new president in a couple of weeks' time, which I'm really looking forward to. He's a great supporter of Safety for Good, Jimmy. So really looking forward to his views on what he can do to help us in the next year.
Brilliant. And I know Rachel and Jonathan, you're both ambassadors for Safety for Good. Rachel, what's your experience been?
It's been so positive. I was just about to say then, Simon, you always have so many lovely good news stories. I always am smiling when I'm hearing them. Safety for Good has been so positive. So not only for just trying to get health and safety in the press for positive reasons, obviously, like Simon's mentioned, but also what a great way to, you know, tune people into the positive side of safety. That's how I actually got into a career in health and safety, because I heard of positive communication and thought we can be involved in, you know, changing the preconception that health and safety has. So Safety for Good for me has been like a big turning curve with all of that. It's been great to be involved in it from an ambassador side of it. And Simon and I were just chatting earlier, just before we came on, about a hugely successful event that Simon ran along with Tim and Jason Anker last year now, wasn't it, Simon? I think over at the Manchester University, and they basically offered free entry to anybody like kind of thinking, you know, at a grad IOSH level about coming in to start a career in safety. So it's been a great, you know, another great news story with all of that. I'm just reading off on the side of this discussion as well, some of the positives communications that are coming out of here. Now it started filtering off, everyone's having their own little discussions, which is nice to see. It's good. It feels like the industry as a whole is kind of turning. I don't know how the others feel, but I think Safety for Good's been a big part of that.
Jonathan, what do you think?
Yeah, certainly echo that exactly. And I was at the launch with the team early last year, and very keen to see and to be part of something like this. You know, I've been following a career in environmental health, and then health and safety has been a core part of my DNA along with the environment. But I've never seen anything quite like this until Simon created this. You know, to actually have something that's kind of a little bit extracurricular, that's not an IOSH initiative or something like that, but semi-independent, but like a good news story, yeah, and focusing on volunteering, mentoring, and all that kind of thing. So I was absolutely passionate behind it. You're very keen to be an ambassador. Myself and James McPherson, so I'm mentoring him through that scheme. But we're both, you know, proud ambassadors and really keen to be part of and to promote as well with Simon, because it is a really good thing to be involved in. And I think we're probably now as more of the profession are starting to become more, let's say, digitally aware and connected. I think this is, you know, we've got a springboard now to really help Simon and the team to really get some of that content out as well and really start to maximise it.
Absolutely. And I suppose on the flip side, I can give another sort of view to Safety for Good, in that I'm currently on one of the Future Leaders mentoring programs. So within a small group, have a mentor called Tim Proctor. And it's a really great session, and it's a slightly different way of doing things, having sort of a group mentoring and coaching session. But it's all the themes that we've talked about. It's developing that network, developing sort of the power skills as well, which I think is really helpful for our future leaders. So I guess a lot of people watching this webinar will be wondering, how do they identify social causes and get involved in health and safety in the community, either within their organisations or perhaps outside on a voluntary basis? Rachel, what do you think?
I think it's available out there. You just need to look for it. So we've spoken about the groups, obviously, that you're involved with, Hayley. You know, it's open and it's available for people to come through. So I'm sure that anybody who's on this webinar can come and speak to any of us, and we can point people in the right direction. Like I say, it is available out there. You just need to look for it. So whether it be through going through IOSH itself and through the forums, or LinkedIn or other platforms, you'll find it on there, and you can certainly get involved. And you know, you might have a great idea and be a future leader with this yourself. So great.
Brilliant. And Jonathan, what about your advice in terms of sort of where our future leaders can identify some of these social causes and where they can get involved?
I think it's different for everyone, and it depends on kind of where you live and what your passions are. I think people will have causes that they naturally resonate with them. So, for instance, one of the things I'm passionate about is plastics in the ocean. And I did a piece with Joe Ruxton, who's a founder who actually produced a Netflix documentary a few months ago. But again, you might think, well, I live in Warwickshire, which is nowhere near the sea, regrettably. But actually, just when I go out for a run on the country lanes, quite often I'm stopping, I'm picking up plastic, because I know at some point that's going to go into a canal or something. So I think whatever you're interested in, again, it comes back to if you care about making the world a better place, and obviously helping to reduce accidents and make people and livelihood safer is part of that. But if you want to make the world a better place, there will be things that resonate with you, and those opportunities will show themselves. I think it's being authentic and being. I think part of it is being vulnerable, being prepared to be vulnerable, particularly if you are more expert in your career and you're expert and you're used to knowing everything, and you go along and say, well, I don't know how to do tree planting, I don't know how to do this, but actually it can be quite liberating to actually learn something for some of the cause. But yeah, certainly there's plenty of ideas. There's plenty of charities out there. So find something that you care about, and it might be sport related, it might be where you live related. Yeah, plenty of ideas.
And I think that goes back to the point, it doesn't have to be, just obviously you've got mentoring and coaching, but there's other things, like you say, you could just be getting involved in sports clubs and perhaps approaching them and seeing what involvement you can have. I mean, when I first before I got into health and safety, actually, one of my volunteering was with the Students' Union, and I undertook a role as a health and safety officer. And it was only a small role, and it was just a voluntary role, but it was really useful. And ultimately, it got me into health and safety and gave me just a little nugget of experience that I could then talk about when I went for interviews. So I think the power of volunteering shouldn't be underestimated, whatever it may be, and on whatever scale it may be. I think it's hugely beneficial especially for our future leaders who are perhaps trying to develop their CV, perhaps trying to get into the profession. What do you think, Simon?
I think it's wonderful. Since we kicked off Safety for Good, which would have been about 18 months ago, we're in their second year now, the people that have come to us that are OSH professionals have done such a variety of different things. I gave the example of the school, but Cal Rose, who was an ex-Marine, who's a safety professional now, he yomped 1,664 kilometres for his former injured Marines who got, and then we've had Tough Mothers that people have done. There's bike races, there's more formal programs through mentoring, but the cross-section of people doing stuff locally for something they're passionate about has been wonderful, and it's given us so much content to put on the website and share the good news over the last couple of years, that there are so many options. And if you can't, I mean, that those opportunities are out there, like Rachel said, but we do have connections, like I said earlier, with the Small Charities Commission and some philanthropic groups who support very small charities who are always looking for extra givers practically and financially. Then we should be able to match you up with those if you register with us as a Safety for Good supporter.
Brilliant. And I think the details are on the chat box about Safety for Good, so do check them out. I noticed we've got quite a lot of questions coming in, so perhaps we should see if we can tackle a few of these for our panel. Let's have a look then. We've got one from Aaron Guppy. So she says, do you believe large corporate organisations should proactively support mentor community groups in delivering community safety more in the future? Jonathan, do you think all large organisations need to be a bit more proactive?
It would be great to see larger corporates and organisations doing more, recognising the challenge that a lot of businesses face at the moment. I think for me, a key element of that is being authentic. Corporate social responsibility, or CSR, has been around for a good few years, and a lot of the time organisations are doing things to be seen to be doing things, so they can put it in an annual report. I think you quite often hear, you only have to look at something like Marcus Rashford in the news recently, and the school meals, actually going out there and really actively making something happen, actually tangibly seeing something happen. So it'd be great to see more organisations encouraging and providing that support and facilitating it. But doing it for the right reasons as well, and being genuine and sustainable.
Absolutely. And I think the benefits as well, it obviously makes the OSH professionals stronger within that role, I would say, broadens their experience. What do you think, Rachel? Do you think large corporate organisations need to be a bit more proactive in this sense?
In some cases, yes, but I do see quite a lot of what goes on from some of those corporates. I think just recently, I want to say Langer Rocks released their whole IMS out to the public, which was like, for me, that was so forward thinking. So it's a free to use for anybody. So smaller businesses or medium businesses can actually get best practice and guidance for all of their forms, procedures and policies, and they put a spin on it as well, because they'd offered the mental health and well-being stuff as well, which A lot of the time at the moment, you see people offering support, but you obviously have to pay for it. So there are big corporate organisations that are doing things to try and help out in our communities. Again, I don't know, you do have to look for it in some cases. And I agree with Jonathan with what you were saying about sometimes they appear to be doing things, but sometimes it's just a tick box exercise. But that's not everybody. Some are doing things quite proactively actually and leading the way with that.
And Simon, I suppose, have you come across many organisations perhaps driving this a bit more proactively?
Yeah, I'm quite encouraged by it actually, and I think Jonathan's right. There are a few that were ticking some boxes for the board report, but I think if you're looking to move and you want to do some research on a company, yes, go to their website, see what they do. But if you look on LinkedIn, you can, and especially connect with the safety professionals that are already employed in that in that company. You can connect with them and they'll give you the insight on what it's really like. Have a look at Glassdoor. Glassdoor is a really good reflective window of what it's like to work for an organisation. And if an organisation is really committed to doing good, focusing on sustainability, focusing on outreach programs for their local communities or communities that they're really engaged with, then the staff will be engaged too. It's not just for the board, board reports. And you can, by digging a little bit, you can find out what the true nature and core culture of that organisation is. And Glassdoor is a great reflector of that.
Brilliant. So we've got another comment here from Faye, who says, I've been supporting my daughter's gymnastics centre, which is a charity over lockdown and their COVID secure measures. It's been good to build a relationship with them and support them get reopened post-lockdown. So I think that's one of the community sort of saying that how they're getting involved. And I think it shows that it can just be things such as sports club where you can get involved and make a real impact within community. So let's have a look. So we've got Robert Jukes, who also sits on the IOSH Future Leaders Steering Group. So Robert says, how do you get involved in your community? How do you find these opportunities and groups to get involved in? So from my point of view, and it goes back to perhaps what Jonathan said, it's about being authentic. Think about what really matters to you, and then just have a look around in your community, see what groups there are, and network, I think. I think COVID's probably brought that out a bit more on people, that people do want to do more to help in their community. Would you say that's right, Jonathan?
I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, you're doing it because you want to do it, and it comes back to volunteering or mentoring, all these things. Nobody's asking you to do it. No one's telling you to do it. No one's paying you to do it. You're doing it because you want to give and you want to learn and you want to grow. So it needs to be something that interests you, that motivates you, that you're going to get some intangible benefit from as well. And that ordinarily will present itself to you. So it may well be that you're out for a run, like I might be on a country lane, and you might see a sign up says, we need some helpers, or you might go past you might have children involved in a school and they need some support or whatever. So it can be tactically, it can be providing some health and safety support, like some examples that Simon gave. It could just be nothing to do directly with health and safety, but it's just something you're interested in as a hobby to support. So it could be like cleaning a brook to help some local wildlife or something like that. So yeah, just have a look. Yeah, there's plenty of things to do, but think more laterally in terms of community. It doesn't have to be just where you live. It can be where you work. It can be where you spend your weekends. It can be where you go on weekend breaks. It can be all sorts. Yeah, speak to your friends and family and find out what support they've got or looking for. And
Simon, what advice would you give in terms of sort of how do you find some of these initiatives in the local community?
Well, I think Jonathan and I have already said, I think they're out there if you look, but we do have some. Well, I do have some connections, like I said, with the Small Charities Commission and some other groups. So if somebody contacts Safety for Good and tells us where they live, what they're interested in, what they're passionate about, we may be able to match them with the right sort of organisation that they might be looking for. So yes, get in touch with us. We'll see if we can help if you can't find something locally yourself.
Fantastic. So another question here from Jessica. Are the future leaders doing anything within the community to inspire the young generation in schools into health and safety? So Jessica, this is something we talked about quite a lot in the steering group, and something we definitely want to get involved in more. I think you'll realise that perhaps a lot of people in the OSH profession are nearer the age of retirement than they are sort of early on in their career. And I think we need to change that balance a little bit more, and perhaps make health and safety a more appealing career route. So yes, we are trying to sort of look at things we can do with sort of the younger generation, potentially in schools, I'm not sure. Rachel, do you think more needs to be done perhaps with younger generation, perhaps even at school level, to get people into health and safety?
Yeah, certainly. So we're doing things such as work experiences, which I keep seeing popping up in this QA panel actually. And what you find most of the time is the work experience or graduate schemes and things like that, they're normally around sort of design or project management and that type of thing. Even in the construction sectors, what we need to start doing is offering our services as health and safety professionals and get our teams involved with picking up that part of the work experience. So even if it's just taking a student for one day and, you know, showing them just how diverse our role is. So we could be looking at something to do with noise or dust on the health side of it, and then working at high like from a safety point of it the other day. So what you actually find when you spend time with these students is they like, you know, how diverse it is. We just don't often get the opportunity from business leaders to have that time with these students. But if we can, where possible, we should try and drive that and get more work experience, more graduate schemes, not just into sort of the construction side, but actually into health and safety. There's so much involved in it now. Obviously, you've got like apps, the virtual side of it, as well as the, you know, underground stuff that I've just spoken about as well. So if we can, I think we should try and grasp business leaders to get on board with that.
And what do you think, Jonathan, on that point?
I think there's still a danger that we reinforce a stereotype of what health and safety is. And yes, there's lots of elements of it around inspections and audits and that kind of thing. I think there's another element of it, which is where if we are looking to design safety risk management into an organisation's thinking at a board level and elsewhere, then how do we, even as part of work experience, how do we start to get people into other parts of the business? So for instance, HR department are introducing a new HR system, which has got payroll and learning and management and whatever. Has it got a risk module in there that can have an impact on, say, sickness, absence, a whole lot of other things that we could get involved in? So could we get somebody on work experience into HR to see HR, but from a health and safety perspective? You know, the IT department have got a new IT strategy, which means there's going to be a lot more cabling going into properties. So therefore, can we get into contract management and look at contractor management as more of a cross-cutting collaboration, as opposed to we just go around and check the contractors? So I think if we can think more creatively around what health and safety is and what it touches on, and then start to act on that, absolutely. I think that starts to present, it starts to be attractive to more people, because Rachel's just mentioned project managers, project management. You know, I think there should be a project manager in every health and safety team. I'll put them into quite a few teams where I've sort of been director of health, safety, environment. So I think that cross-cutting thinking, bringing that into it, it starts to make it more valuable, and it starts to show, as opposed to just on an inspection basis, it shows how somebody coming to the profession can have more of an influence across a whole organisation.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned it earlier that health and safety professionals now wear many different caps, you know, whether it's being the consultant, the auditor, some HR issue, you know, you may come across. And again, I think the volunteering side of that and getting that experience across many different sort of functions can be really beneficial. So here's quite a good question from Isa. Many people of my community do not believe health and safety is necessary nor important. How can I overcome this concept? Rachel, what do you think?
Did my smirk then just be directed you today. I think that actually COVID has helped quite a bit with this, because I don't know about everybody else, but seem to be taking quite a lot of COVID calls, you know, from whether it be relatives with businesses or friends, etc. I think this, and it may have been touched on earlier by Simon as well, but it's changed the whole perception of health and safety people. It is important. It's so important. We're not just there for people, you know, to tell people what to do, but we're a guidance. You know, people have actually shown that they need some form of guidance, and we've all got the same government guidance available, but I don't know why, but it just seems to be made so much easier to understand when it's somebody like ourselves that are helping guide that person with that. So it's hugely important. We not only look after people's safety and health, but we're also people that are, you know, here to help with like the whole well-being side of it as well. It's changed so much more, and we're not that obstructive, compliance, hazard spotting function anymore. It's all about like softer skills, and we're an enabler rather than an obstructor. Somebody said that before, so it's a good point to mention. So if they don't think that we're important, or you know, it's not seen as good, I think that they'll be fine. They just need to understand a little bit more about what it is that we're actually offering, rather than what we're not trying to do, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Simon, what do you think in terms of sort of trying to overcome this concept that, you know, potentially a community doesn't see health and safety as necessary? Oh, you're on mute.
It helps if I unmute. Well, I think there's so many examples, sadly, in the world today of where safety hasn't been at the forefront of business organisations or communities, or and you know, we do quite a lot of work at Principal People with the social housing community, and you should see the initiatives taken by the safety teams now in social housing following Grenfell. Now, one might say they point the finger at the safety professionals for Grenfell, but you know, there's been lots of documentation and reporting about that. But the initiatives that and the investment that is being made are significant, and people recognise the value of it, sadly, through some catastrophic disasters, whether they're in the UK or globally. And when it goes well, it's fantastic, of course. And but the sad thing is, if you're a nurse or a doctor, you're heralded and you're a hero for all the reactive stuff you do to save lives. Now, health and safety professionals primarily save lives by being proactive for what they're putting in. So a lot of their work goes unseen because the stuff that never happens. And so you tend to get the finger pointed at you for the negatives, and most of the time that's nothing to do with anything that those professionals have done wrong. So it's a toughie. It's the proactive stuff going on in the background, quietly building systems, planning, processes to stop things happening. You just need to use some of the positive examples of when it goes well.
Yeah, so I noticed we've got another question here from Aaron Guppy about Grenfell. How will Grenfell affect community safety perspective and engagement? So Jonathan, is there anything else you wanted to pick up on that bit?
Let's go back to that previous question about health and safety not being relevant or whatever. I think there's still that perception, and it's a language or communication issue. There's a perception about what health and safety is, a bolt-on extra, the audit, the safety police, and therefore we don't need it. It gets in the way of business. We'll come back to what I said before about being more cross-functional, collaborating, and being more curious. The power skills that you refer to, by going into the other parts of the organisation and seeking to understand other people's experiences and their challenges, and then relate to them and relate our portfolio to them where it can add value and they can see the value and you can design risk in, all of a sudden it starts to become more powerful as opposed to how we're being seen. So I think there's a greater need for both sides to change the narrative, I think.
Definitely. So a very quick question then, another one from Robert Jukes. So we're seeing the COVID pandemic that some of the poorest people are now worse off. Is now the right time to be getting involved and contributing to charity despite obvious concerns for our own health? Jonathan, what do you think?
It's always the right time to do the right thing. It's always the right time to give freely, to help and support others. I think at the moment it's clearly challenging, and obviously you need to take care of your health and others. There are going to be more and more people who unfortunately are going to be out of work, or their work's going to be more uncertain over the next couple of months as well. So there will be more people who have more time available to be able to support. So I think, notwithstanding that we need to not put ourselves in harm's way and follow any guidance that needs to be followed, but yes, there will be more opportunities to help, and it doesn't need to be labelled as volunteering as such. It can just be phoning somebody up and asking how they are. It can be, if you're out, just smile at somebody when you're walking past them in the street or whatever. I think it's the little things. There can be big grand gestures, and Safety for Good can run a big campaign. Corporates can do a big thing, but start with where we are at the human level, the human connection level. We want to make the world a better place. Even just smiling at somebody, anything beyond that, whatever you can do within your own means. I think, yes, it's always the right time.
Brilliant. I know we haven't got through all the questions, but do carry it on the forum and the LinkedIn page after this. So final remarks then from our panel as we're now sort of wrapping it up. Rachel, was there any sort of final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I'd just say, on that last point as well, it's never too late to try something different as well. So with charities at the moment, they are struggling and suffering. So even if you just fancy doing something slightly unusual, you could raise money for charity in that way. They would be extremely grateful for that support, because everyone's kind of had the same they need to look after the pennies and stuff. So yeah, even if you don't think you can raise money, even if it's a £5 or a £10, it's still something better than where they were yesterday. I'd absolutely encourage people to keep communicating. I think, like yourself, Hayley, I'm a bit of a networker, so I don't know how things are going to pan out, in the future with all of these events and awards and everything that have all been not cancelled but made virtual. So let's all try and make a bit of an effort to make sure that we keep communicating with one another. And I'm absolutely going to take advice from this panel on that point, because you've given some really good ideas of how to do things when you're not like meeting people all the time and stuff like that. I've shared the link that I mentioned earlier about the SMS. A couple of people were asking about that, and do please keep in touch, even if you have any questions. We may not be able to get back to you straight away, but we'll always find time to provide advice and guidance to people that need it. So thanks everybody for your time and giving us the opportunity to have this platform to obviously speak publicly to one another on.
Thank you, Rachel. And Simon, final thought from you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about Safety for Good. Selfishly, I'd like to push our Future Leaders program that, Hayley, you're involved with. You did well to get on that. We had 100 applicants and we had 12 places with two fantastic leaders. We're looking for more leaders, global heads, or at least UK director level heads, because we're expanding the program. We had, as you probably just gather, I had 88 people who couldn't get on that program. So I've got some really good future leaders that want to join that. And the dynamic of that is really good. I think you've probably experienced that, Hayley, when you're in a team as well, and there's a bit of camaraderie in that team. There's a little bit of peer networking as well, which we're trying to create. So we want more leadership coaches for that. And so if you're interested, please sign up or at least apply. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And finally, Jonathan, final thoughts from yourself.
Thank you very much again for the invitation. It's been a great discussion. Really encourage everybody who's listening today to think about what they can do locally or whatever follows their passions over the next couple of months, to consider finding a mentor and or a mentee as well, because it is a really good relationship and it's beneficial for both parties, as Simon said earlier on. If you'd like any further information from myself, then there's plenty of content on risk, sustainability, health and safety on Red Lace's social media, so every major platform. But yeah, wishing the future leaders all the best wishes. It's a really great initiative, and it's really good to see so much happening so quickly. So all the best.
Fantastic. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much to our very enthusiastic and great panel. Really appreciate that, and thank you to our audience. Sorry we didn't get through all the questions, but obviously post them on the LinkedIn group and the forum, and we'll keep the discussion going. And join us on the next Future Leaders webinar, which will be on the 16th of December. So thank you, everyone.